Folks, recently, my colleague Jacqui Tricarico and I, who is the executive producer of Think Tank and also of our series Remember Them, we were out there at the New Jersey Sharing Network 5K. It's over in New Providence, New Jersey. Jacqui had a chance to sit down. Now, she wasn't sitting down. She was standing up and talking to a whole range of people who have powerful, compelling stories about organ and tissue donation, about the gift of life at the 5K at the Sharing Network. Here's Jacqui.
Joining me now is Catherine Goss and her sister Colleen Bowl. Catherine actually received a liver transplant just back in February. Yeah. And the liver, half of the liver, came from your sister.
Yes. Yep.
I need to hear more about this story. So tell me about what happened and why you needed to receive a liver transplant.
Sure. So I've had some autoimmune diseases pretty much my entire adult life, one of which is called primary sclerosing cholangitis, which I know is a mouthful. It goes by PSC, which is the abbreviation for it. And as part of that disease, you are at a greater likelihood for a lot of complications, including something called cholangiocarcinoma, which is bile duct cancer. And I had bile duct cancer. So I first got bile duct cancer in 2019, and I was able to have what they call a liver resection, where they removed part of my liver. But when I was diagnosed again this past fall, that wasn't an option for me. So I got the formal diagnosis in December and found out that my only chance really for survival was a living donor. So we started that process, and we were able to identify my sister.
But how did when you know that you need a living donor, because this is the first time we're talking to somebody who's had a living donor transplant, how does that process start? How does the reach out start? Is the New Jersey Sharing Network involved right away?
Actually, we weren't involved with the New Jersey Sharing Network because it was a living donor situation. Okay. The hospital network that I was with, my doctors suggested that I start with people I knew. So, and I started with what I call the big ask. So they said, you know, go to your friends and family and see if you can get somebody who you know. When it comes to living donor, the preference is for somebody that does know you. Obviously, there are many cases where people do the altruistic gift and they give to somebody, a complete stranger. But ideally, if they can find somebody that knows you and has a personal connection to you, that is preferred.
And it needs to be a perfect match, too. Yes. It just can't be anybody. And I'm sure that perfect match can most likely come from somebody in your family. So, Colleen, tell me when you knew that she needed a transplant. What was your first thought?
Well, my first thought, honestly, was that it was me. I knew, right? I knew all along it was going to be me. I would be the right person for it, and the most appropriate person to do it. And I knew that my blood type was compatible. I knew that, I mean, obviously the relationship's there. You know, we're sisters. It just, I never doubted that it would be me.
And you never had a second thought? Was it a scary decision for you?
Oh, well, I mean, it's certainly scary. It's a big undertaking. It's a major surgery. So, you know, there's going to be some recovery and there's some risk involved, but I was very confident in it the whole time. I really had no doubts at all.
That's amazing. Yeah. Let's talk about the day of the surgery. What happened? How did things unfold? How did everything go? And I want to hear from you, but then also, Colleen, because being a living donor, I think people need to understand, like, you know, what is it like in the aftermath of it? So talk about the day of and going into surgery with your sister.
Well, our surgery was at Mount Sinai in New York City. Mm-hmm. So we stayed overnight the night before because we had to be there very early in the morning. And of course, it was highly emotional, you know, highly emotionally charged. And the emotions run the gamut. For me, obviously, I was very concerned about my sister. I was also very concerned about myself. I was very concerned about the outcome because there was a lot of questions. And with a living donor, I can't speak to a deceased donor transplant because I didn't experience that. But in our experience, and in my personal experience, there was a chance when we got into surgery that the surgery may not be able to proceed. For me, because it was related to cancer, if they got in and saw that the cancer had spread too far beyond my liver, they wouldn't have even begun the operation on her. So as you can see, there were a lot of unknowns, and that can, of course, lead to a whole mix of emotions. But we were there together. Mm-hmm. We were actually in the room together, mm-hmm. leading up to when they took me in, and then they took my sister in, I think, about an hour later.
Yeah.
We were literally holding hands until the moment I was wheeled in.
Yeah. And the surgery went really well. And talk about the recovery afterwards for you as being the donor.
It was as expected. I felt like I was very prepared for it. Mount Sinai did a great job. I felt like they set me up with mentors of people who had been living donors in the past. So I felt like I knew what to expect there. It's tough. You know, initially it's really hard, but
It's a major surgery.
it's a major surgery.
But
I mean,
how are you feeling now?
I feel great. I feel great. I mean, I feel like I really bounced back. I recovered well.
Because again, it's only been a couple of months really back.
It's been 4 months, not even.
Not even.
Not even 3.5 months, yeah.
She was great. We were both in the ICU afterwards, but she moved out of the ICU very quickly. She was up walking very quickly.
Yeah.
And she was released very quickly from the hospital. She still had to stay nearby from observation.
Yeah.
But
And obviously for you, it was more of a
impressive.
major surgery for you.
But when you're
And-
the person who's actually sick, it's a different experience than the person who is well. And obviously you need to be in good health, as she was, to be a living donor. That's one of the key criteria.
Yep.
And so you're, with anything, if you have a surgery and you're in good health, the recovery is anticipated to go better. And so we're glad it did for her.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that you're both here today,
Oh, my
feeling good
goodness.
enough to be here at the Sharing Network 5K event. What does it mean to both of you to be here today, to witness what this is really all about and how things unfold here at the 5K every year?
Well, it's great.
Yeah.
It's great, right? It's great. I mean, back when this was all happening, it felt very, you know, obviously emotional and scary and not really sure what to expect over the next few months. And I think it's been surprising. Our recovery has been surprisingly good. Our support from our family and friends have been wonderful. Being part of this is even more amazing, right? Being able to walk this on this beautiful day, I think it's great. I mean, I can't.
And for anybody like who is questioning, like, okay, being a living donor is a whole nother thing, right? So
Yeah.
if anybody's questioning being a living donor or, you know, checking that mark off on their driver's license or doing it online to become a donor in general, what would be your message as being someone who
I would say explore it. Certainly, you know, keep an open mind and do it. You know, if you have that personal connection, I think it's an easy decision to make. If you maybe don't, it's somebody who's not a sister or a loved one, a friend or whatever, maybe it feels like a bigger decision to make. But you'll be surprised. I mean, it's mostly the unknown, right? The unknown is scary, but if you educate yourself beforehand and you're prepared and you trust the process, like I trusted very much that they would only do what was right for me and that they wouldn't even pursue it with me if I wasn't healthy enough to come out successful from it. So I felt completely confident going into it.
And
One thing I'd like to just add to
Yeah.
that is that the hospital really underscored that the living donor is the priority. And I think that's important for people to know. You know, they are put first, and as they should be, because they are doing something, you know, incredibly generous, and so they should be. So her health is, as my living donor, was prioritized. And that may help people get over some of that fear and trepidation of pursuing it.
And for you with your sister, I'm sure there's probably no words that you can ever say to her to say thank you for doing this. How has that been for you to try to show her or tell her how important this was for you?
Impossible. Let's just say it's impossible.
But unnecessary, because it was just going to happen regardless. So yeah, so it's all good. There's no need for that.
I've tried, and I will
sure
always try. I will continue
very
to try
nice.
for the rest of my life. If I could say, you know, I also, as part of my surgery, received an artery from a deceased donor. So, you know, we're here supporting, obviously, living donors. We're celebrating my life, our success, but we're also really in support of the whole initiative and the message of the Sharing Network. We couldn't be more thankful.
Well, thank you. And we're thankful that you're sharing your story, and this helps educate people about organ donation, how important it is, tissue donation, and you know, your story is incredible. So thank you for sharing with us.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Jackie.
you so much.
Thank you.
One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation. Funding has been provided by the Turrell Fund, supporting Reimagine Childcare, Delta Dental of New Jersey, Valley Bank, NJM Insurance Group, the Fidelco Group, New Jersey Sharing Network, Johnson & Johnson, Rutgers University, Newark, and by Prudential Financial. Promotional support provided by bestofnj.com and by Insider NJ.
NJM Insurance Company has been serving New Jersey policyholders for more than 100 years. But just who are NJM's policyholders? They're the men and women who teach our children, the public sector employees who maintain our infrastructure, the workers who craft our manufactured goods, and New Jersey's next generation of leaders, the people who make our state a great place to call home. NJM, we've got New Jersey covered.